The experiences and events of my past have shaped who I am and have given me the impetus to use my skills and talents creatively to make a difference in people's lives. My favorite position in this world is working with people and ideas in that watery, flowing, shapeless place where new ideas come together and are manifested into a fresh, new form. At the age of 16, I gave up my arm and shoulder to bone cancer. It was a long, hard battle, and I used all of my internal forces to continue living. I realized then that believing is the one thing that we can hold on to when we are alone, when we are told that our chances are slim, and people for some reason tell us what we will never do and what we will never be. They define for us what our place is. The first years were filled with nightmares, doors closing, and dreams shattering. I spent my school and working life as a very different person living in the mainstream world of the normal. I faced challenges with overcoming prejudices and limited thinking, including my own. As I followed my own leadership and direction, I often found myself running against the wind and swimming against the tide. I simply had to take a stand against elitism, textbook leaders, institutional yes people, and cement ceilings. So I did. In the most difficult moments of my life, I found that following your heart, because it feels like the right thing to do, is the only guidance you get. You simply take a first step and keep going, feeling your way through and knowing that you do have a place and purpose in this world, believing in yourself and never giving up. The harshest days and the greatest challenges inspired my creativity. I created solutions for doing what I wanted to do. I found the strength and the courage to overcome my fears and what I once thought were my limitations. What were some of your thoughts when you were writing this artist statement?
You dig deep and try to figure out what makes you the person that you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just try to put that into words.
Yeah. It says that for the first few years were filled with nightmares, doors closing, and dreams shattering. How did you get through that?
It's really, really tough thing because initially it's just a fight for your life. It's such a huge change. You're on a certain life path with certain expectations of what your life will be like. And suddenly, in just a few days, your whole life just turns into something so entirely different. It's just an amazing thing to happen. It's just a turning point that, at least for me, it was totally unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Was your family supportive through that?
They were supportive, but they were very fearful, and it seemed to me that I had to be the strong one. They know how fiercely independent I have always been,
Mm-hmm.
and when I did get an interference, which was often people telling me what my choices were, what I now could not even think about doing, like going to college or getting married or having kids, which I did all three. People saw how independent I was and kind of had to leave me alone.
Yeah. It's a willingness instead of willfulness, an ability to take on life's terms as opposed to putting up a big fight. A person who is brave enough to ride the waves instead of trying to stop them. You did the exact opposite. You took life. You took the waves. You can't do this. You can't do that. And you said, hold up. I'm going to go do what I want. And you're going to leave me alone. That's really incredible.
Absolutely. And being so young,
Mm-hmm.
at that age, people think that they all have to give you advice because you're young. So you get advice coming at you from like everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Your teachers, your family members, your neighbors, your friends, and you just kind of have to sift through it and, you try not to get agitated.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I did, for sure.
Yeah.
Because they are advising someone that's actually living through it, and how could they possibly know what it's like to go through this, and yet they are trying to advise you. So
Definitely had a lot of time to think about this and to develop as a character. So
a character I am.
You yeah.
And this is my daughter.
How would you say that your thoughts and your views have changed over the decades?
I think, like most teenagers, you're not really sure of yourself. You might be at a certain age, but you're not really sure of yourself. And you actually let other people define you. Like if they say you're pretty, you think you're pretty. If they say you're ugly, you think you're ugly. If you read something and you're fatter than this, you're fat, And that's sort of a natural thing. But I think as you just go ahead and live your life, those kinds of judgments are much less important to you. Because no matter what is out there, you know yourself, you know what you can do, you know what you're capable of, and it's just less important. I finished school, I found a job, I worked at it, I was very good at it, I made friends and did the whole thing. So now I really couldn't care less what people think. The reason that I try to kind of not draw attention to myself, that's why I wear my prosthetic device, that's why I try to present myself, as normally as possible, is because I don't want to draw that kind of attention to myself. I just don't want it, I just really rather blend. I know that people will accept me, the people that are important to me will accept me for who I am, and that's my friends, my family members, people I've worked with. They love and accept me, but I really just don't feel like being a focal point.
I feel like a lot of people do that, like not just in your situation, but it's very easy to just get lost in the crowd.
It is, and it is funny because there were times that I knew people, let's say at school, and actually commuted with them and did other things, or people at work, and they would actually know me for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And not realize, and I'm not going to tell them unless they ask. And then suddenly they'd say, Barb, what's wrong with your hand or something? Or why aren't you carrying this way? Or then I'd go, well, guess what? And stunned, shocked, just sort of amazed, jaw dropping, like I had no idea.
Yeah.
And yet other people, I don't know if they're just more intuitive or what it is, other people can spot me, know immediately, especially kids. I've had kids come up to me and say, oh, you have a play hand, out of the blue. So you just, I guess it depends on how perceptive people are or how much they pay attention.
Definitely. Going back to what you were saying about people not noticing, me, your daughter, I didn't notice until I was like 8 or 9 years old.
No way.
Yeah. Joe had to tell me one day, he was like, yeah, Mom only has one arm. And I was like, no.
There's no way you didn't know.
Like, I mean, I've seen the prosthetic, but like, I grew up with it. And so I was just like, oh, that's Mom's arm. And it didn't like click. Okay, I probably wasn't 8 or 9. I was probably like 5. But
I'm surprised that Kathy and Joe did not take it to show and tell at school, but I am stunned since, Kathy grew up with this. It's amazing.
You know what it was? Me and Joe were watching Inspector Gadget, and he had all the spare parts, like arms that would shoot out of him, and then he was like, oh yeah, Mom doesn't have an arm, maybe we could get her like an Inspector Gadget arm. And I was like, Mom doesn't have an arm? What? It was something so normal and so average. Like, it didn't strike me as weird.
It was normal for you.
Yeah, it was just something I grew up with.
For any other kid, it'd be like, oh my God, what is that? But you grew up with it. And
yeah.
It was Mom.
Yeah.
That's amazing. When you think about it, none of us really fit any standard mold in any way. We are all so very unique, with different personalities and different skills and different talents. Who is to say what that standard thing is, whether it's body image or anything else? I mean, I think we just have to accept each other as all being very, very unique individuals and just kind of leave it at that, because no one is any sort of perfection, and whoever tries to define perfection is wrong anyway, so the heck with it.
Definitely. And Two Whole Cakes by Lesley Kinzel. On page 24, she talks a lot about the idea of fashion, which is fashion specifically made to accommodate larger bodies.
Okay.
So, what accommodations, clothing-wise, have you had to go?
So you have to look for fabrics that are light, and yet they can't be transparent, and yet they have to have higher necklines because you have all these straps and things that you don't want to show. To try to find something with long sleeves and higher necklines and a fabric that's not transparent, that'll fit right, can be extremely challenging as well. There's lots and lots of these sorts of restrictions when it comes to clothing, definitely.
Yeah. So, I hope this isn't going into too much, but I know you're working on a new prosthetic, which will give you a lower neckline. Can you talk about that?
Yes. But they've always been restrictive right here, and now my prosthetic guy just came up with a brand new design, and in it, it's going to allow for a nice V-neck. And I was just fitted for it, and I'll be working with him on it, and I can't wait to get it because I actually have not worn V-necks in about 10 years. This is about as far down as I can go right now, so the thought of having a nice open V will open up a lot of new clothing options for me, and it's very, very exciting. I'm also getting a new hand that isn't this thing. It's sort of a relaxed hand, and it actually has nails on it, and I'll probably have my nails done to kind of blend it in. It looks a lot more natural. It looks a lot more, it's more like relaxed like this, like down. So it'll be quite a big change for me.
Definitely.
After all these years. At some point I was pretty comfortable. Remember I told you about the myoelectric arm, and I had to keep going in and trying to learn how to use this thing, and that meant a lot of clinic appointments. And my brother used to, most of the time he drove me, and in this one situation I had to get home by myself. And the only way to get home is to take the L. So I had my straps here to make it do this stuff, and it was end of the day. I was tired and beat up. I got on the City of Chicago L at rush hour coming home from clinic, and instead of paying attention to my straps and everything I knew, I just sort of plopped into the seat to take a rest. Well, when I did this, my straps expanded and did their thing so that my arms started going like this, opening and closing, going so everyone's eyes were on me, and here I am with this, and I'm trying to be nonchalant while my hand is doing this sort of on its own. And then I started sort of wrestling with it, trying to get it down. I wasn't thinking that I was creating the problem by being slumped in my seat. And finally, everybody on the L was looking at me. I had to walk over, wait for the doors to open at the next stop, and then finally I got off. And then figured out what went on, and then I caught the next L home. Oh my God, that was one afternoon. I guess you can't slump.